So welcome everyone to Banking Frontiers panel discussion on taming delinquency and preventing NPA. This has become a very hot topic due to the economic situation arising out of the COVID crisis. But even before the COVID crisis, this was a very important topic. We are very glad to have panelists from the BFSI sector who will share their insights on this topic, on how they're taming delinquencies and controlling NPAs. So, welcome everyone to this discussion. I am Manoj Agrawal. I'm the group editor at Banking Frontiers, and I'm moderating this session. I'd like to now invite my panelists to introduce themselves, a brief about their name, their organization, their role, and any one point about their background and experience. And then we'll go around. Okay, let's start with Avnish. Avnish, could you briefly introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Avnish. I'm working as a CRO in Moneybox Finance Limited. So we are basically into microcredit. So we are catering to a ticket size of 1 to 1.5 lakhs, typically in tier 3 and tier 4 cities. So this pandemic has really been a great lesson for all of us as we are into microcredit. So a lot of learnings, which I think I'll share over a period of time.
Great. Thank you, Avnish.
Yeah,
Abhishek, can we have your introduction?
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, all. My name is Abhishek, and I'm currently working as a CFO in India Home Loan Limited. We are into the affordable housing schemes from last 12 years, and yeah, as Avnish said, that this pandemic was a very different experience for us.
Thank you, Abhishek. Balaji, can we have your introduction?
Thanks a lot. Myself, Balaji, having around 23 years of tech expertise from varied domains. Presently, I'm working for Orange Retail Finance. We are a young NBFC company. We are a traditionally digital NBFC player providing the mobility finance. We are having around 2,000 employees and we are having almost 80 plus branches, and we are covered entire South India and having a customer base of 1.3 customers, and we are almost covering 10,000 pin codes. This COVID was a great learning for us. In the due course of this one hour time, we can keep sharing each other's ideas. What is that you have done it? Certainly. Thanks a lot.
Yes, definitely. Thank you, Balaji. Deepak, your introduction, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy to be here. I take care of the asset-backed financing business for Magma. Magma, I'm sure everybody is aware of, has been in the industry for the last 30 years. We largely cater to the underserved segment within the MSME. The products that we do are largely vehicle finance, tractor finance, and associated loans.
Thank you very much. Over to Vinod.
Yeah. Good afternoon, all of you. Very happy to be with all of you for another one and a half hours. I don't know. So myself, Vinod, from Speridian Technologies. So we are. I'm the director of the company who looks after the direct banking solutions. So we have more than 25 years of experience personally, and have been in this banking and financial segment.
Thank you, Vinod. I'm actually happy to see all of you. Of course, COVID is a huge negative for all of us, for society. But I'm actually happy to see that people are taking a positive spin on it and seeing how it can improve things and make it better. That gives hope that, yes, we will get out of this situation for a better times ahead. Achhe din aayenge in that sense. So let's get down to the discussion itself. Something that is big and unpredictable and sometimes difficult to respond to makes one think deeply. Otherwise one can get away with very quick solutions, something that comes to mind. But something big like this really makes one think deeply. What kind of thoughts come to your mind when you go deep into thinking about this sudden economic shock? So I'm not talking about COVID as a medical problem, but as an economic shock to the society and to your organization. When you think about it, what kind of thoughts come to your mind? And who would like to start on this? Yes, Deepak.
I'll go first, Manoj. I think you put it quite aptly that while this is something which was precipitated because of a medical situation, but the economy has been the one thing that has got deeply impacted. It is not as if that the economy was doing absolutely great before COVID impacted, but it just seemed to have precipitated it to a new level. And there were a couple of challenges, and I'm sure everybody did face these. It was about what do you really prioritize? Everyone knew that this is going to have deep impact on the profit and loss and balance sheets of individual companies. But without fail, and it's an amazing human trait, I suppose, that everybody first thought of people. There were mechanisms which were designed so that the safety of employees came in first. There were mechanisms which were devised whereby companies thought of how do we make employees comfortable in terms of working out of homes, which is an altogether new experience, right? Even earlier times when somebody said I'm working out of home, it meant something which was that you wanted to stay away from work and you're just giving it as an excuse. But this is one time where I think organizations very, very constructively thought about how do we really help employees work from home and not leave them to their own fate. The second thing that happened was that while most of us are in the financing business, and for us, a repayment becomes one of the most critical elements of having a sustainable business. But this was one time when everybody probably thought of the customer's safety also before that, and where it was more important to really ensure that your customer was safe. There were issues that customers would be facing in such times, quite obviously. And therefore, the human element, the softer elements of organizations did come to the fore. There were a lot of solutioning that was based on technology, but there was a lot of solutioning which was also based on how do you bring about a more engaging aspect of the organization in terms of care. How do we display care for employees, for customers, for the industry in general? This was also one of the times where I think the regulators engaged more actively with the players in the industry. I think it's probably the first time that I have experienced that the regulators engaged so deeply and were willing to hear to all that the people had to say. The kind number of representations that went out to the regulators during this time probably would be setting a record, I suppose. I mean,
absolutely.
And the kind of regulations, the agility with which the regulator responded, the agility with which the government took note of what's affecting the populace of this country. Again, I think that would probably call for some kind of a record, right? I mean, the changes, the clarifications, I mean, they were like every third day you were getting something new from both the government and the sector. So I think from that standpoint, it brought out a lot of elements that are not usually visible or not usually, they don't surface. But I think that's why I say that this has been a very interesting experience on multiple counts. This last 6 to 9 months, and I'm still counting those months because I don't think the effect of the pandemic has completely gone away.
Still going on.
I think we've seen a lot more than what usually the stakeholders in this entire financial services ecosystem has displayed till now. I think this period showed us a lot more than what was displayed before.
Fantastic, Deepak. You've really touched on some very interesting points. And the regulatory perspective is something which had also been thinking about, but you have vocalized it very well. Any other thoughts from anyone else? Something new, some difference that you have seen in thinking and operations? Yes, I mean, Avnish.
Yeah. So probably this unprecedented crisis gave us an opportunity to simplify things, be more agile, and be more innovative also. And since we are into microcredit, and microcredit is all about hope. see, as of now, I think we are probably able to see the hope because vaccine is announced and all that. But once lockdown was announced, like probably we were not very hopeful. Or like what lies next. So since we are into microcredit and microcredit, it's all about a lot of challenges. Like floods are coming, and then you need to help the people out. So since we have learned a lot from Professor Yunus, Professor Mohammad Yunus, who used to say like you need to help your borrowers. Borrowers will not abandon you if you are going to help them. So probably if you are sticking with your customers, if you are helping them in right time, they are going to help you over a period of time.
Absolutely.
So I think this is a major theme which is coming out of this crisis, because you would have seen like a lot of microfinance customers have shown a lot of resilience over a period of time, which was not expected at all when lockdown was announced and all that.
Okay.
So I see the overall ecosystem, as Deepak has already pointed out, the be it regulator or be it, so every stakeholder has played its role very succinctly and very importantly, and that's very important in this kind of crisis when everyone is going together and trying to solve issues on a recurring basis.
Correct. So if I may summarize, the positive nature of human spirit has come out very well. Whereas during normal times, we see more and more of negative news and negative headlines. But in this negative scenario, the positive human spirit has come out. Well, that's good, Avnish. Thank you so much. Vinod, do you want to add something?
One important thing happening is, everyone is exploring options to become more and more online now.
Yes.
So finding various options to reach out to customers digitally. Another change, we feel is that resistance to change is also seen reducing, I would say.
Okay.
Normally top management envisions, but there will be multiple practical difficulties in terms of execution. But now across the hierarchy of roles, more openness in adapting to change is seen. In fact, COVID has made us, I would say, alert, cautious, and curious too.
Okay.
The trend is to take a step back, look into yourself, and try to adjust. Now, lenders want to know how can we deal with the situation where customer does not want to come to the branch due to various reasons. Everybody does digital onboarding, online remittances, reviewing customer documents online, analyzing the credit worthiness. See, we are seeing many NBFCs have some of their field staff visiting the customer premises, capturing videos about their interactions with customer on loan queries and sending for approval kind of. Financial institutions has become very much aggressive in adopting technology. Even before also it was there, I would say, but the real accelerator was this pandemic. As we work with, Speridian works with different kinds of financial institution, public sector bank, private sector bank, NBFCs, cooperative banks. One common question being asked, was we want to see the list of customers who may default in coming month. Otherwise, what is my expected increase in my overdue account or SMA account in coming 3 months? See, we were doing a system study last month in a leading bank for implementing our Beacon smart collection system and dynamic risk rating module. So the general manager of the bank, general manager recovery of the bank was stressing that leave NPA. There the damage is already done. We will manage that.
Okay.
I want to closely monitor my regular loans and SMA loans. For this, you have to give me. He was telling every day morning the list of activity that my recovery person has to do. It should be in there. In his inbox. Another question was, how can I streamline my team's daily work, to increase the productivity kind of. So we introduced our dynamic risk rating module to his team based on the input from his team. Some customization were done and implemented at the bank. This is a very big bank with more than 5,000 branches. The project is going live in coming days.
Okay.
The point is, we all know the economy is as a whole is bouncing back. Maybe there is a pent-up demand which will be cleared in coming months. Anyways, the business is increasing. This will come with increased requirements for loans. But yes, financial institutions are very cautious now.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Great. So you have been to translate the macro scenario into what actions some of the lenders are taking. Balaji and Abhishek, any points from your side? Yes, Balaji.
Yeah, thank you. That was a very, very nice. Like everyone had a different view. My takeaway during this COVID pandemic was our organization must respond rapidly and it should be robust for kind of to maintain the business continuity. That was a major takeaway from me. And one major takeaway which was since the world was kind of coming to an end, everybody was having a mental framework. What will happen to my job? Because what happened? No, we can't do the sale. Okay, the sale part is completely stopped. Nobody can able to do it because I'm doing a two-wheeler lending business where every two-wheeler is being distributed from the dealership outlet. So I can send my team to do the onboarding activity. Customers who are not there, shops are closed. Okay, one part of the sales team, the two engines are there, the sales and the collection. It's like a train. Okay, so everything need to keep going parallelly. Sale need to happen, collection need to happen. So what happened now? There's a large chunk force of almost like my 60-70% is my sales workforce. They were thinking what will happen because it's a prolonged period of almost first initially it started with 3 months, then it went to another 3 months. So we need to first of all, we need to first work with a mental framework and we need to cajole them, tell them, don't worry, nothing will happen to you guys. We will be taking care. We need to be with them. And what we did is best part is we turned the entire sales team to start doing the collection activity. Okay. So during this pandemic period, everyone was following the collection part. And my collection system has improved drastically during this pandemic period, kind of a complete empathy-driven activity. Already we have done a lot of digital so my entire activity is through kind of a traditional digital concept and my collection also through traditional digital concept. Like I will also visit the customer place, customer can able to pay through online. So all 360 channels are available to the customer to do the payments. A similar thing is the same. So my system was ready to handle it. So during the pandemic time, we have seen kind of increased rate of transactions through the digital mode. And another learning was to kind of bring in kind of a frictionless customer journey during this pandemic period was a great impact there. A lot of digital innovation happened during this period. That's a great takeaway. We will discuss on furthermore on this NPA, how to time it, everything in due course of time. Thanks a lot. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Balaji. Yes, collections is definitely an important part. I have one question on that. We'll come to the others also with that same question. Abhishek, your deep thoughts during this?
So Manoj, I'm pretty much having the same version what my other colleagues are saying, and the important thing is that initially when this lockdown started, and then the pandemic was impacting everyone on the earth. So we wanted to be that time the more worry was that care your employees, care your customer first, and look for your survival. And the kind of retail branches we were having. We never used to work from home, so this was a big change for us working from home. We tried best to connect our customer and to heal them that okay, the situation will overcome. So the current initial months to a couple of months was more into the caring employees and caring customers. And then slowly when we saw that the lockdowns were easing out, we were on the floor and on the ground to understand the situation. The bigger change which I have experienced in the last 8 to 9 months is that now we are taking more detailed view on customers' business. We are trying to understand how their cash flow is going to impact over the coming months and quarters. We are making small teams now. Now my teams are having geographically smaller areas to cover because due to the pandemic, it's not make sense to to send somebody for a larger geographical covering. And definitely on operation side, the bigger challenge is to keep team engaged when they are working from home and how to make their life balanced life, work-life balance life, because when the line is very, very thin when you work from home, when your home time starts and when your work time starts, you never know. So
there is no
those yeah, so those kind of challenges were were very different for us. And I mean it's for everyone.
True.
So
True.
initially the NPA and delinquency was not the bigger worry. The bigger worry is to keep going and keep continue, or at least keep maintain the same level. And I think we start the NPA worry was started, after when you lockdown eased, and then only you can think, well, now let's start thinking about it.
Correct. You're right. I mean, the human worries and the social worries predominated. NPA came much later on. Great. Thank you. Let's move on. I want to touch on one very specific thing, which is the moratorium, which is what the regulators announced. If you can all give like one point response, how did you handle the moratorium? Because this is not something on that scale that a moratorium is not built into your systems, I'm sure. If it is, then that's really forward thinking. But how did you respond to the moratorium at the people level, at the data level, at the communication level? If I can get a 1 minute response.
So before moratorium, like a couple of learnings was that to kind of establish a resilient culture was there for us, and kind of agile workplace model we already built in. Okay.
Okay.
So when it comes to the moratorium, what has happened is a new concept altogether. Initially, they told to give moratorium for the first 3 months, then it got extended to additional 3 months. Okay. But the best part was for me the loan origination or the loan collection or the LMS, the entire stack is kind of a homegrown solution. It's completely in-house built solution.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when the moratorium was there, already we had a similar concept, kind of we call it a broken credit interrupt concept was there, but this moratorium was completely different. So we need to keep working with those kind of algorithm. What we need to do, and the challenging part was all the developers, everybody was working from home. So we couldn't collect everybody. So we need to go for a daily Skype call, daily Zoom call meeting, and figure it out what kind of algorithms we need to develop for it. And then we developed the model, and then we could able to implement it immediately, kind of a thing. So we never seen a challenge in the development part or the implementation piece. Only thing was understanding from customer perspective. Every customer thought moratorium means they not want to pay anything. It's a kind of a waiver kind of a thing, because I'm operating from a tier 2, tier 3 rural sector. So we need to start creating a lot of video content. We need to start sharing to the customers the importance of paying it online, or if they skip, even if they apply for a moratorium, what kind of interest impact would be there. So we created a lot of digital content, and then we keep sharing with the customers. The collection was decent enough, and those who are not paid and all, they avail for this moratorium, and we could able to do it seamlessly. We couldn't see any challenge in this moratorium piece.
Okay, that's great. And good to understand that you could tweak the software and get the result.
Yeah, it is almost 1.2 like customers base was there, and that whichever guys operate for moratorium, we could able to do it. Yeah, thank you.
Abhishek, what was your organization's experience?
Yeah,
handling the moratorium.
Very similar, Manoj. When this moratorium started, I want to say that the moratorium was the topmost requirement. I should say, when you see the larger as a society, it was definitely required. A lot of people got impacted due to this pandemic, and some kind of relief was definitely required there. And then RBI announced it for firstly for 3 months, and then extended for another 3 months. The moment moratorium announced, if you see almost all LMS and MIS systems are having the moratorium features in those largely.
Okay.
Like initial moratorium is a part of regular loan structuring process. Yeah, but this kind of pandemic and this kind of in between moratorium kind of structure we generally don't see. But getting it implemented over a month or over a couple of weeks was not a challenge. Okay. The larger challenge where I faced is that communicating this to the customers and removing the doubts in their mind, because with moratorium there were a lot of misconception that they are not required to pay their EMIs, or the EMIs are going to be waived off, or their interest will get waived off. But and that leads to even the capable customers not paying and not paying for their EMIs, thinking for not paying their EMIs. So we went for a detailed script writing that what moratoriums is going to help you, what are the disadvantages and advantages of this, whether you should take it or you should not take it. If you are going to take it, how your loan schedule is going to impact, and how, because if you are going to increase your tenure, this is going to impact you heavily on your interest payments
Yes.
to the later part of your loan period. So these kind of customer connection and reach out to every customer and making him understand, that was the huge task. That was the day and night task we had to go through
It is. Understood.
when the moratorium started.
I
terms
think you
of
and Balaji
system
have
upgradation.
same issues and the same
Yeah.
kind of solutions. If I'm asked Deepak and Avnish, did your organizations also face the same kind of problem and did you adopt the same kind of solution, or was it anything different for you, Deepak?
So, yeah, thanks, Manoj. See, moratorium as a concept for people who've been in the financial services is not a new thing. We all knew what a moratorium meant. The issue was that it was being launched at a time when we were seeing quite a bit of an upheaval overall, not just nationally but globally. So typically, how moratoriums are done is that you discuss with the customer and you try to take on board what his issues are and what is the stress that he's feeling and what is the likelihood of his business coming back on track, his cash getting back to normal, so on and so forth. And then you extend the moratorium to the customer. But in this situation, this was...
Deepak, if you can come to your solution, I mean,
Yeah.
did your organization face a different kind of challenge than what?
Yeah, so I'm coming to
Balaji
that.
and Abhishek?
And I'm coming to that. For the base that we have today in the books of Magma, it is more a customer who is used to a face-to-face interaction.
Okay.
So to be able to evaluate whether he should take a moratorium or not was the biggest challenge, given that it was a lockdown, right? Nobody could and these are customers typically in the tier 2, 3, 4 cities who are not very conversant with phone conversations. I mean, even if you do an initial phone conversation, they would want to meet face to face with their relationship officer, with their branch manager, and explain to them, and so on and so forth. So, and that is why I break down this whole period into 3 parts. One was the part where there was a complete lockdown, right? And therefore, we had no choice but to extend a moratorium to almost all our customers, unless they explicitly said that we do not want a moratorium, because that was the only fair thing to do. Since we were unable to gauge, and there was obviously a timeline within which you had to give out these moratoriums and execute it on the system.
Correct.
In the first phase also, it was the toughest for us because we have a homegrown system. Magma has been in the industry for 30 years and we have a homegrown system.
Okay.
Right? And to have, like Abhishek mentioned, a moratorium right in the middle of a tenor is something very unique, right? And we had never envisaged the situation. So we had to actually go into a development. Our technology team did a wonderful job by actually turning around something as complicated as this, because please understand, when you do a moratorium, the entire amortization schedule changes for future, right? And it's not just that, the moratorium came in 2 phases. So then you have actually prepared for phase 1, suddenly said, okay, now we have a phase 2 also. And therefore you had to actually go back to the drawing board again and to see how you really tweak your system again, because then you had to execute another set of moratoriums for customers. But like I said, I'm breaking it into 3 parts. So the first one was during lockdown and we extended it to everybody. The second was when the lockdown started getting lifted and the second phase of moratorium had to be implemented. That is when we actually started engaging with the customer. And we did a massive engagement program where we spoke to 2.5 lakh customers individually.
Wow.
And explained to them face to face, through videos, through snippets, through WhatsApp messages, so on and so forth, as to what the moratorium really meant. And we saw a fantastic response from customers where actually our moratorium percentage dropped to 50% of what it was earlier.
Wow.
A lot of customers really understood what the moratorium meant for them, and they were not really in a hurry to continue to delay their payments. So they moved quickly back into paying mode. Now, the third phase is where people who have taken up moratorium for the entire period and are still finding it difficult to pay, right? And that's what I call the third phase, which is after the moratorium has been officially over. And that is where I think is the toughest challenge that people will face, how to identify customers who are not misusing this period as to just stop repayments, and customers who are genuinely in trouble and require support. And when we talk about the regulatory solutions in terms of one-time restructuring, so on and so forth, I mean, or the ECLGS scheme, who really extend it to? You really need to give it to deserving customers. So now that is the challenge I think most financial organizations are dealing with.
Okay, true. Thanks, Deepak, for explaining, getting into the details. I want to talk about collections. So maybe Avnish, I can come to you. I'm presuming that your experience with the moratorium was more or less similar to what our other panelists have said, right?
Yeah,
Can I
so
assume that?
not exactly, because see, ours is a relatively young organization, so we had a little, customer base is relatively smaller than these organizations. However, we took a different approach. Like we prepared our strategy at the collection strategy at the ground level, rather than at the head office and something like that. So because ours is a micro credit segment, so we wanted to have a pulse of the what is happening at the ground.
Okay.
Because lockdown was there, so and we kept our staff quite highly motivated, because because they were engaging with the customers, so we just wanted to understand what is happening on the ground. With regard to moratorium also, a lot of over communication happened. There are a lot of multiple communication happened from the lenders also, so there are a few set of lenders who are given blanket moratorium to their customers.
Yes.
So we didn't get into that. So we probably able to understand our set of customers, like if you want to avail moratorium with lender one, it's fine enough. But let me tell you the details of the moratorium also. So probably our employees made them understand like what are the going to be implications of the moratorium. So probably there are a lot of customers who took moratorium from lender one and they didn't take moratorium from us. So that was like a win-win situation for both of us, for the customer also and for us also. So in a way, since we work mostly at the ground level, so we didn't face the heat too much.
Post-COVID, how did your collections team? So like all of you emphasized that the shift was on towards collections. Did you add more people in collections? Did you shift people from other departments into collections? What all did you did apart from system change? What did you communicate to customers? How did you communicate to customers from the collections perspective to keep the collections rolling? Can couple of you respond to that? Can we have Balaji, let's say, share your perspective, collections?
Yeah.
What you did special?
Thank you.
People,
Yeah.
process,
More,
technology.
yeah. More than special, what I would say is get the basics right, first of all. Okay. Don't do much thing during this time. Get the basics right. That should be there. Basic is like there's a different set of team who does the front end, who does the 90, who does the bucketing, does the repo. So that basic is already there into the place. Okay. And then what we did is like since during this COVID time, the sales team was also following for the payment. Once the sales started, we need to keep moving them to the sales team, and the collection was there.
Okay.
Our basic fundamental was let the customer pay through whichever customer pay through Nash, let them pay. Whichever customer pay through digital channel, let them pay. Okay. Whichever customer paying through QR code, or they can walk into a couple of banks and do the payments, or that kind of integration, or Paytm, let them keep paying it. Whichever customer not paid, that base alone will keep reviewing every single day. And we have 700 plus collection executives are there. They are distributed with the daily allocation. Okay, we have given a complete mobile app to them. The allocation is shown to them to which guy you need to visit today. Every day morning, early morning, they need to put the allocation. A message goes to the customer in the morning, like this guy is coming to your house to meet you. They need to go to that customer, and every single day, customer given money, I need to collect. If it's not given, I need to put a no pay trial. Once again, I need to take a selfie, whatever it is. So a complete digital 360 digital solution has been given to get the basics right. So since we put the basics right, okay, our collection mechanism is improved a lot. Efficiency is built into the system only by tracking, nothing else. So from morning, I need to put allocation, then I need to follow the allocation. If I put a PTP, system itself will remain. Then you've done a PTP, now go to that guy, it will remain in the morning itself for him. And a complete tracking, because we do the distance calculation based on what is app showing. We pay the incentive based on what app is showing. And then we give a lot of incentive to the customers based on certain buckets and all. Well, he can able to see like how much is earned on a daily basis, and similar kind of a thing we do a drive on a collection, drive on settlement, everything will be there. Customer also gets benefit. Yeah.
NBFCs
Thank
in
you.
general have very strong collection teams and mechanisms and strategies and philosophy.
Yeah. Very
That
true,
has
very
paid
true.
off very well for you during this.
Correct.
Did any of you have to do something really different in terms of collections? Something really different? Yes, Avnish.
So probably in our business, first of all, like we segregated the businesses which might, which are likely to turn around or which are unlikely to turn around. We segregated simply two parts. Then we segregated the customer segments also. Like first of all, the customers who are absconding, the customers who are not responding, the customers whose businesses are closed and they have started a new business line, or customers whose businesses are closed, however they have no option as of now. So we have clearly segregated the customer segments. That gave us, so a lot of analytics happened at the back end while calling with the customer or working on the bounce data of the customer. So I would say during these 5-6 months, because we were not very sure of what's going to be the normal bounce rate for the next month, which customer is not going to pay me for the next month. So that challenge was there. So a lot of analytics happened in between.
Okay. So the analytics drove the responses at the ground level.
Yes.
Okay, great. Vinod, what is your opinion on what technology can do in collections, which apparently is still a manual process with a lot of, like Balaji mentioned, they have 600 or 700 people in the team doing collections. What kind of transformation can technology bring to collections as an IT company? What do you say?
Yeah, Manoj. So quite interesting, as Balaji was commenting and Avnish also regarding the segregation or set the basic things right, as Balaji highlighted. Yeah, being a technology company, see, I would say the collection strategy. There are 3 major strategies. I mean, according to Speridian, how we help lenders. 1, catch your loan customers early. 2, maintain an intelligent customer touch point. 3, adopt a smart collection strategy. So Speridian helps lenders implement this actually. You will be having collection staff for direct visits, of course, as Balaji highlighted. Then call centers also will be there for follow-up, calling, etc. Of course, then a couple of back office team also will be there to send the communication or various other back office activity. See, using our system, they all will get their list of works to do each day with target dates. Managers have an intelligent dashboard showing the progress and performance of team members, alerts and escalations. See, it can help you analyze your data with due importance. Also, see, there are many warnings that can be triggered by looking at our customers' transaction data or the responses, the kind of reflect that customer gave to your various activity. Speridian has a powerful EWS system, early warning system solution. Let me highlight a couple of signals actually. See, number of times your account turns overdue, maybe in last 6 months or 1 year, or heavy cash withdrawal from the account, or delay in submission stock statement or non-submission of statements such as audited financial statements, decrease consistently your interest coverage ratio, your means the customers, or various other financial ratios, or resignation of key personnel from the organization, or reduction of the stake of promoter in the company. Critical issue highlighted in stock audit report. Multiple things. There are hundreds of such kind of triggers will be provided by the system. So the system will alert you by itself on occurrence of these events. Think of how it should have been done if it is manual. No, only maybe 1 or 2 signals we will be able to possibly monitor. But so here now you are getting the power of analytics, analyzing the data, as our Avnish was clearly highlighting. Then segmentation, of course, the word Avnish used was segregation. Absolutely. Segmentation process also helps. Instead of our blanket approach, that is putting your entire efforts in all the loans we can help you to do a risk-based segmentation. That is, loans will be automatically classified into different buckets, high, medium, low, kind of. Each of these buckets have different predefined activities to be done.
Mhm.
So these activities are automatically allocated to your collection team. As I responded earlier in the dynamic risk rating model of Speridian, where your loans are automatically classified based on their risk. The activities to be done for this loan are automatically allocated. I will tell you, it help improve your team's productivity drastically by automating, by removing human involvement, by avoiding unproductive works. So, I mean, to summarize, there are 4 important technology adoptions to be done by lenders to tame delinquency and prevent NPA, the topic of the day. One, using the capability of early warning system.
Okay.
Using the capability of prediction, I mean, predictive analytics.
Okay.
Automate your collection and make it intelligent. And utilize the power of segmentation.
Segmentation. Okay.
That's how I look at it.
Interesting. Yes, very interesting. If I may come to, let's say, Deepak, Vinod talked about all these data elements that need to be captured. How geared up are NBFCs and lenders today to be able to actually access all this kind of data directly or through third sources or through newspaper reports or whatever else? And how easy or difficult do you have systems to, act on these at the earliest? I mean, when Vinod was talking, what was there in the back of my mind was what if Nirav Modi, what they had done, and your Vijay Mallya of Kingfisher, if these kind of people had their actions had been caught, okay, he's booking a ticket to London for him and his entire family. These are kind of triggers, I guess. So, for a small, so I can understand SBI may have some solutions for this kind of thing, but for a smaller organization and for a mid-sized organization, what is the way out? Is there a practical way out to get these kind of early signals?
So Manoj, I think the collection strategy that you design or the solutions that you would want to implement will hugely depend on the kind of customer segments you deal with.
Right.
Whether it is a retail versus a mid-size, whether versus a corporate. And your solutions would vary significantly based on that. The kind of solutions that Vinod spoke about in terms of early warnings are quite adept when you do a mid-size or a corporate kind of a customer segment. But in the retail segment, you have to deal with it a little differently. And it is got to do largely with the customer's own behavioral traits in the past. So you develop mechanisms whereby you are able to, and the word has been often repeated, segmentation, whereby you categorize your own seemingly homogeneous looking base into various categories based on how their past behavior with you or their behavior with other financiers, which you can find out from, say, the bureau reports.
Okay.
Right? And so you then very clearly segment, not to complicate stuff, but typically into 3 segments, high, medium, and low risk. And then you prioritize accordingly. And some of the key things that you look at is how many times is he clearing his check instead of me having to go and collect. When during the month after having not cleared his check, did he make a payment? The third thing that you would also look at is that how irregular has his been payment over a period of time. And then based on some of these parameters, and I'm not giving a prescription here, I'm just giving some insights into how to do that, is to basically segregate into buckets which you manage differently. And the strategy element comes in at this level. Once you segment, you need to have a strategy by segment. And therefore, you decide how do you treat a high-risk customer versus a medium-risk customer versus a low-risk customer. What kind of collection actions do you take? Do you accelerate your legal actions? For a vehicle financer, do you accelerate your repossession actions? So on and so forth. Now, it all depends upon, like I said, how you've segmented your customer base. The critical element, I think, is the second part, that once you have done the segmentation, once you have done the strategy, how do you really implement it on ground? Strategies can be great, on paper, but if they cannot be implemented on ground, given the kind of infrastructure that you have, then they will remain on paper and never give you results. And therefore, you have to be very smart when you choose your solutions. To my mind, some of the times, and I think most times actually, and I have been a collection manager for 10 out of my 20 years of experience. And I have been a collection manager in multiple organizations where I've set up collection systems. I've set up organizations right from grounds up, and also been trained in organizations which were probably the best in collections strategies, right? But I've always figured out that the simplest strategy is the best strategy. So if
Simplest is best.
because you have to think about how will you communicate to the person on the ground, how will you ensure that he follows your strategy on the ground. And you may have a great strategy on paper which is complicated, highly analytics driven, so on and so forth, but if the guy on the ground is supposed to go and meet the customer is unable to deliver it, then it's going to fail. And for us, that is why we keep it very simple. We do our allocation smartly. We ping our collection people, and they have, obviously, while I said we meet face to face with customers, we have systems to drive our own people, whether it is sales or whether it's collections. So his application comes on his system. He knows exactly who needs to follow up with today. We know how his previous visits to the customer, his previous interaction with the customers have ended, whether there's a promise that is given, whether he said that you need to come and follow with me after a period in time, and therefore a date has been fixed. And those are the ways you actually guide your field force to ensure that they prioritize according to what the past history has been. And that's, I think, the best solution to my mind. Now, you can make it detailed and more granular upon how big an organization you are, how many types of products you have, so on and so forth. But this is basically the broad context in which the collection can become successful.
Yeah, that sounds interesting. Very realistic solution. I just wanted to ask Abhishek, home loans typically has very low NPAs, and I would imagine that you do not have too many challenges in terms of identifying. Do you also end up doing segmenting your customers based on certain behavioral traits or market information or something?
Behavior. Yes, Manoj. The behavioral segregation of the customer was very much necessary. And see, we used to segregate the customer even before pandemic. We used to segregate the customer based on their payment patterns and based on their, and their geographical segregation. Some of the geographical areas were we were more sensitive while giving loans. We also used to do the property evaluation and customer evaluation. But post pandemic, the same dashboard now having new features and new buckets. Like we have to always see the things in background of keeping pandemic in the background. We cannot totally rule out. And for everything we cannot start the legal solution immediately, because the legal services were also impacted in last 8 to 9 months. Courts were not working. Yeah, and till today, the courts are not working. Only Gujarat High Court is online available for everyone. So these even your legal trigger points, not going to work out. So you have to have the view on the customer. You have to understand that how he is going to behave in this pandemic situation. Is he going to be able to build the cash flows? If who's going to pay you fast? How much you can collect as early as possible? And I'm completely relate with Deepak that whatever strategy you build, the best strategy which you can implement on ground, which you can explain to the very front staff of your organization, who can understand and execute it on daily basis. So it was twofold challenge. One for us to sit in the office and formulate these strategies, these plans, and the second is to communicate it to the ground level staff and to the customer itself. So this was a very, very different experience for us. And our collection, we saw a lot of challenges and changes in the collection system. A lot of time the CFOs are not getting involved directly into these type of discussions. But I was in last 8 to 9 months. It was a very, very good experience for me. I was directly involved in those meetings and planning and formulating those strategies and looking into that. Okay, how fast and how best we can recover, and who the customer is going to impact, who's the customer is going to pay, how we can sympathize with him, and how we can make him understand. Okay, if, you can take the benefit of moratorium, and how you can make even sometimes it leads to a couple of cases where I'm suggesting my customer in his business part so that he can positive cash flow and can pay me back. So this leads to that level in couple of cases.
Not expected from a home lender, even though I think you're going beyond your typical role to get into his business and all. That's interesting.
See,
I want to
this
touch upon another
this
point.
was an a kind of thing which came after it's a 100-year thing. After the earlier pandemic was 1920 and now this 2020. So this made me and everyone in the company thinking differently and thinking out of box what we can do, and whatever we can do our best for our customers. We are always available.
Unfortunately, Vinod, I don't think you have a 100-year history on IT to go back to what happened during pandemic in 1920. I don't know if you want to comment on that.
Yeah, very interesting. So actually, yes, absolutely. With reflecting on our Deepak and Abhishek, or everybody actually. So technology has to be simpler. We can come up with different kinds of technology solutions, and how it is being implemented and how it is giving results on the ground is the real. No, there lies the solution. I mean, it has to
That's
be
a
that
catch
way.
for IT, actually. That is a catch for IT.
Absolutely, and this is very interesting also. See, I mean, I will take maybe 2 minutes, just tell you a case study of one of our banks. No, actually, what we do know, I mean, our AWS solution, one of our recently evolved solution. It has, as I was mentioning, we have pre-canned signals. You can create your own signals and all. But the point is, it motivates you to take action. So let me tell you a case from one of our bank who implemented our EWS system about a year back. They were under CBS core banking for more than 10 years, and they were using another loan origination system solution also. And apart from that, they have another HRMS solution to manage their employee benefit. So this bank have more than 1,500 crores of loans issued to 7,000 plus borrowers. So NPA is about 9%. More than 1,000 customers were under NPA. Another 2,000 in SMA or overdue accounts. So there were about 25 to 30 people look at the collection from their regional office, head office, and all. So normally they started follow-up actions. When they fall in overdue, kind of. The monthly collection demand of this bank was about 18 to 20 crores. But the actual collection coming up was 10 to 12 crores on an average. So that was the situation. So we implemented this solution, Beacon EWS solution, with 36 signals. So we utilized the data of the core banking software, loan origination software, and to some extent their HR management software also, to take the data of the staff working on the bank. So the project took about 3 months to go live. Normally, it will not take 3 months, but here we have some initial teething issues and all, which we could fix with the support of the top management of the bank. So on analyzing the data, bank's data, there were clear signals coming out, which they were never realized, only because nobody is looking at it. But now, initially itself, we were able to throw out about 100 and 120 warnings from about 75 plus loan accounts. These loans were completely regular. No default happening at all. It gave real insights to them. Top management and the staff team was excited to see this. They were motivated to start taking actions on that. Realized that these signals were very relevant on the ground. On implementing Beacon EWS, after the 5th month, their collection started improving. It went more than 10 months. 10% for that 5th month. About 14 crores. It was increasing month on month also thereafter. Now they tell that taking action early is becoming very fruitful than going when the damage is already done, which we all know. So the point is, again, coming back, data is precious. Analyze it to your benefits. That is what we tell. There are various avenues to do this nowadays, implementing EWS, implementing predictive analytics and all. But leave all these technology jargons. Let us look at implementing and getting the result out of that.
This is interesting that for now you're saying that there's a lot of data within the organization already, which can be tapped. Earlier examples you gave of data that is kind of sounded to me like it is outside the organization. Like someone has said that will not come into the CBS or the LMS or something. Interesting. Anyone, if you would like to comment on this data aspect, how you are gathering more data or, analyzing the data in a better way, using tools or techniques or solutions or what? How are you doing? How are you converting data into gold in this
Data is the
scenario?
currency of the future, right? And it's aptly so. Honestly speaking, that's what is going to make organizations stronger or weaker. How good you are in terms of collecting information and being able to mine it better. So, as an organization, at least Magma has a sound footing because we have 30 years of history, and we would have had millions and millions of customers on books whose behavioral traits have all been stored, right? And it is not just got to do with collections, but I think it's got to do with even business opportunities that you need to be able to mine your existing customer data. So from that standpoint, I think Magma has had a lead. I think it's been a very technology savvy company from the early stages itself. Today, there are a lot of tools available which intelligently read data, right? I mean, the question is that how do you really quickly upgrade yourself? I mean, the earlier way of analyzing was download everything into an Excel sheet, apply some kind of filters, look at data line by line, and then come up with the insights that you wanted. Today, there are much better and much more elegant ways of handling 10, 100, 1,000 times larger data sizes and coming up with solutions or insights faster. And I think that's a journey that every organization is probably traversing at this point in time. However, some of the elements that people tend to miss out on is that you need to once in a while get into a focused engagement with customers to collect very, very different kind of information. And this pandemic was one such opportunity for organizations, right? For example, Magma engaged with 2.5 lakh customers individually twice during the 6 months of pandemic. Where and this is typically almost all of our live base, right? Because we have 3 lakh live base, 2.5 lakhs is what we touched, and because the rest of them we couldn't touch pretty much, but otherwise we touched them to figure out very specific stuff about their businesses. So what insights we got during this time by engaging in this simple conversations with customers, I do not think we would have been able to capture in normal times, and that is why this is something now is gold for us, because there is a lot of insight segment wise that we know in terms of how for example, never ever did we think about whether my customer has another source of income.
Okay.
Never did we think, because we are vehicle finances, right? So when you're financing a vehicle, it was about deploying that vehicle to earn his income, and therefore we used to do an entire assessment based on that. However, today we realize that my customer, family members, and most of our customers do stay in joint families in smaller cities, may have other income sources.
Correct.
So if that's the case, that brings in a lot of other opportunity that you're completely missing on your own customers who you've assessed once, who you've given loans to, and probably has a great track record with you. So some of these insights also keep coming up. This could also be used by us to say, hey, listen, your vehicle may not be deployed to earn income, but you are earning income from somewhere else. Why wouldn't you want to service your loan through that income and keep your credit history clean, for example? That will help you take loans in future. And the bureau data is now much, much more powerful.
Yes.
You can get a lot of insights into customer behavior. You can get a lot of insight into customers' characteristics itself if you are able to look at the bureau data on a more regular basis. And I think that is something that this pandemic obviously amplified the whole scope. But I think it also happened because bureaus played a very active role during this time. They actually came back to most of their data submitters, which is financial institutions, and told them that, listen, we can help you with information that may not be available on your system because you may not see it in your customer behavior, but we can tell you how your customer is behaving outside. And therefore, you should be able to then strategize accordingly.
Very interesting.
And that's where data becomes now the core of this entire banking services industry, I suppose.
I want to open up if any one of you want to ask each other questions. I've been asking questions and I have plenty more to ask, but do you guys have anything you want to ask each other? It's an opportunity to do so. You have some kind of variety of people. Vinod, do you want to ask something?
Yeah. See, having with this wonderful panel, so I mean, with the industry experience, see, we would have noticed that our automation of NPA, because our today's topic also is that NPA. So a regulator was coming up and was telling that our NPA should be automated, some kind of circular like that, wherein our NBFCs and all should abide that by June 21 and all. So I mean, how do you look at that? Is that a that you already are there, or you want to look at doing kind of? I maybe, yeah, Deepak, would you
I
like
think
to
most organizations with history would be way ahead in that cycle, right? I mean, the regulation in terms of submitting NPA information to the regulator has always been there. The point that the regulator is now making is that the data should be clean, which means that the system should basically throw up results which you should submit to the regulator as is, untouched by human hand. And there's obvious reasons for it. Like I think Manoj mentioned, right? I mean, how could you have really figured out whether Nirav Modi was going to go bust or not? I mean, the point is that if the data gets touched by human hand, there is always a chance that it gets massaged and corrupted, and therefore the information does not flow as is. So I think the regulator is coming very strongly on some of these technology aspects and automation. They're trying to make submissions automated, which means that your system throws it and it just passes to the regulator systems. And I think it's a very, very important step in the right direction to my mind, because a lot of the massaging and a lot of hiding of information that happens today will completely go away if that is implemented absolutely intensely as the regulator intends to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Any other questions from anyone?
Deepak told capturing quite a lot of information and then fine tuning the lending process or credit underwriting process, fine tuning the collection process, everything. Every organization keep doing it on a regular basis. It's an improvisation tool and to figure it out what need to be added further. So every company keeps doing, but I come from a different point. Whatever data we are capturing should be completely a kind of what customer is willing to share. Just capture those informations alone, and should be completely safeguarded, because you are all capturing KYC information of a customer. Okay, it is a completely secured one, and put the right process in place. Okay, that there shouldn't be kind of a data leakage or anywhere, because whatever we are capturing are completely customer personal information. Okay, so I think we need to emphasize more on that part also. We keep capturing 400 fields of a customer, certainly, like blood group to religion, everything we keep capturing. Okay, so I think that emphasis should be there always. Yeah, that's what I want
I
to
just
say.
wanted to give an example, which is very common. I'll just repeat it here. There are people who will say, I don't have money to repay my EMI to continue. But then also on Facebook, they'll show photographs that they're doing a party in a 5-star hotel, that they're going on some foreign vacation, stuff like all that is not private information. So somehow I think that that intelligence has to be there in the system to automatically, as far as possible, automatically capture such information. In fact, many bankers have told me that they have teams tracking their customers on social media, your Facebook and Twitter and whatnot.
Okay.
There is any
Correct. Most of them are doing it. Yeah.
what they know understand about the
It's not only the show. It is not only the social media profile. They also take from the third-party source also, many information we keep saying. But my contention here is whatever data we are capturing from customer perspective, it should be completely safeguarded, like sending as an Excel report to somebody, the employee, and then they are forwarding to somebody, the data keeps going. That should be completely avoided. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Which reminds me also, just to continue the point that I was making, there was a video about a couple going to a travel agency for a honeymoon after marriage, and this travel agency, they just do social media honeymoons. That means they'll take your photographs in Paris and London and give it to you without sending you actually anywhere. So nowadays, social media data is both ways. It could be real, it could be fake also. There's a lot of fake information going around on the web. And I think financial organizations have to be particularly cautious. And this is a serious topic. That in the flood of information, one needs to find ways to make sure that that the information that you act upon, data is gold, but if the data is corrupt or fake, then you're going to end up If you use fake gold, you'll end up with fake jewelry kind of thing.
Yeah.
At that point, I want to sound a caution. Deepak, it's
Manoj,
if you wanted to leave and you for your next meeting, I'm happy to thank you for your participation.
Thank you so much, Manoj. It was, I think, a good time interacting with all of you. And it's sad that I have to leave, but it is something which was a preconcept. So I need to get back to doing and meeting the other people as well. So thank you so much for
Any closing remarks from you, Deepak? Then I'll go around.
So I think you're talking about taming delinquencies and preventing NPAs, right? So to some extent, Supreme Court has given you a reprieve, saying that you don't need to declare NPAs for a period of time. But that is why I'm leaving that part out. But taming delinquencies is something that one will have to really take seriously. And delinquencies are going to rise, whether we like it or not. Now, the question is that what is a good level and what is a bad level? And every particular organization, every product class will have to make its own assessment in terms of what is okay and what is not okay. And take a real hard look at what they have been doing till now. Because end of the day, please understand that a credit cycle or a credit down cycle will keep happening in this industry every 8 to 10 years. And you can keep going back 8 to 10 years and see that, right? Okay. The question is that what is the real good time to really reassess your own credit strategies, your own customer strategies, and therefore stay ahead of the curve. It is not as if that pandemic is the only thing that is going to hit you. Every 10 years, you'll have something. Right from, I mean, I've been in this industry since 2000, and it started with the credit crisis in 2002, 2003. Then it came to the 2008, 9, 10 small ticket loans crisis. And 18, 19, 20 has been really bad because first you had the liquidity crisis, which led to a credit crisis, and then you had pandemic. Right. So every 10 years, if you look at it, you would have had some kind of a cycle which would have made you sit and think. Now, the smarter managers would have been ahead of the cycle, knowing fully well that it is now almost 10 years. Something's about to happen. And something always happens. That the cycle in the retail industry that continues to happen. Retail financing is because you tighten it for a very long period of time and then you suddenly, too tight, and you start releasing, everybody releases, everybody jumps onto the same bandwagon, everybody follows the herd and over leverages the customer. And it typically is a 10-year cycle. So you will this continue to happen, and I'm sure that it's not going away. 2028, 29 is going to be similar again, so you will be ready for it. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you, Deepak.
That is my closing remark right now.
Yes, wonderful.
Thank you,
Deepak. Thank you.
Thank
you. Bye, everyone. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. All the best, Deepak. Abhishek, Balaji, Avnish, any closing remarks?
Just wanted to,
it was a wonderful discussion, interacting with the panel. And, this, I mean, at the last we were talking about, technology and all. So now this is data and automation and technology, all are the buzzword, we are listening from last couple of years more, and specifically during this pandemic. But the one point which I want to make here is that, your business is first and technology comes next. So when for the at any time when you look into the technology implementation, you have to understand your business objective, what actually you achieve out of it. I have seen many organizations in my past avatars also, and when interact with the people in the industry, many organizations, they become slaves of their own technology, and the lot of energy gets driven, gets shifted to upgrade that technology or to make that technology align with their business objective. So that point has to be kept in mind, and specifically during this pandemic time, when we supported our customers, now we are seeing this support back from them. So yeah, definitely technology upgradation is the future. For example, video KYC and Bharat Bill payment system was introduced this year, and payment through the online wallets, UPI systems. This is going to be the definitely the part of future, and we have to have adoptive of those new things. But it should be in a phased manner and in a very planned manner. The business objectives has to be achieved at the end.
Absolutely. It's very easy to get lost in technology. It's quite it's
actually the point. Yes.
Attractive, all these fancy things, but one should not get lost in it. You're absolutely right, Abhishek. Balaji and Avnish, any closing remarks? And then Vinod.
Yeah, so from my end, I think every crisis brings some kind of opportunity, and every organization is spearheading towards shedding off old risk models, and they are reinventing their the entire risk structure and everything. So it's a good time to re-evaluate whatever is happening all around and all that. And I think something better will come off, and the hope is the only thing which we are which we are seeing. So in microcredit, we say it's not about money, it's about people. So sticking to your employees, sticking to your customers, I think it's the basic. If you are keeping your basics right, I think things will move on from here.
You're right, Avnish. And which also goes back to my original question. What are the deep thoughts that are coming into your mind as we face this crisis? Right. Thanks, Avnish. Balaji, your closing thoughts?
My closing remarks is certainly business is very, very important. But when it comes to innovation, ideas, anything, if you're waiting for all the signal to turn green, you cannot start the journey. Okay. So just keep starting journey. It's not like don't try to do it, just do it. Okay. That's my closing remark. Yeah.
Yes, it's very interesting. Just do it. Like Nike. You must be a sports person or something, Balaji. I'm guessing. We know your closing thoughts.
Yeah. So interesting. So very much excited. We have had a wonderful time with all of you. So yeah, a couple of interesting points also came up. Human first, and business will follow. So we have to address the human needs. Then yes, again, business is again has to be the first thing which we consider, when technology the next only. As Manoj was commenting, it is easy to get lost in the technology. And we also touched upon the data, the flooding of data that is going on. But at the same time, we clearly stress upon the security part of that, which is very, very, very important of these times. And of course, we know our country is coming out with certain security laws and all, which we all have to follow, and it's very critical. Similarly, we were hearing some credit card data, complete credit card data is available in darknet kind of. Last 2-3 days before, some news was there. I don't know the reliability, but something like that. So this is all important. We have to be secured enough whenever we do all these kinds of things. Lot of opportunity can be done, but and it is all beneficial also. But at the same time, security is the foremost prime important thing. So yeah, that's how I would like to conclude, Manoj.
Yeah, thanks. In fact, that is very right. For the financial sector, banking, we at Banking Frontiers had on several such discussions relating to cybersecurity, particularly.
Yeah.
Different kinds of attacks, different kinds of ways of preventing, controlling malware, all that. Typically, we invite CISO level people because that's their primary responsibility. But one thing that one very interesting thing that CISOs have told us is that nowadays the top management and the boards are taking a deep interest in security. They're asking not just superficial questions, how secure are we, but diving deep into the session. So everyone from the customer to the top management to everyone in between is now really concerned about security. So, and the virus has just shown that how insecure we are, how vulnerable we are. And the virus is the smallest thing in the universe, smallest living thing that
Yeah.
is the mess of our life.
Very
We're not talking
true.
of
Very true.
dinosaurs attacking us. We're talking
If you
of
see now, it's not only the board, it's RBI is asking questions. If you see the recent articles and all, if anything like if banking domains are failing, customers are not asking. No, RBI is coming and giving directions. So it should be very, very cautious. Yeah, very true.
Absolutely. So one has to.
And they are putting stop on the business. If any
That's what
technology challenges are there, that's what happened recently. They're putting the stoppage on the new business.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It has to be a very thoughtful approach to technology. You cannot just pick up the cheapest technology or the first
Very
available
true.
technology.
Very true. It
My
should be
neighbor
robust
is
enough.
using
Yeah.
this technology. Let me also use it. Thorough evaluation has to be. I'm happy to see actually all the business people becoming technology literate nowadays. Earlier, the technology people and the business people, one was speaking Chinese, another was speaking English, and they didn't understand each other. But that problem is fortunately solved nowadays. So that's good.
Yeah.
Great. I thank you all very much for a very interesting discussion. Hope it was fruitful for you, and hope you go back with some insights that you can deploy in your business and prepare for the next cycle, 10-year cycle, or whatever.
Yeah.